everybody, welcome in. This is Julie Max and the Main Stamper. It is Monday again, and it's the last Monday of June. Oh my gosh, this month went by so fast. I feel like summer is going to fly by too. But let's not wish all of those days away. It's a little warm in the craft room. I'm still waiting for my AC to be installed, but it's coming because it has to be done. It's getting warm in here. So welcome in. Say hi when you're jumping on. I'd love to know where you're watching from. And thank you for joining me in my craft room for my Make It Monday. Now, this card that we're going to make tonight, this is really awesome. Let me show you a little sneak peek here. Pretty, right? This is with Timeless Tiles, Eclectic Garden, and a surprise die. It took me the longest time to figure out what die goes with this card. Now, normally when I'm copying an image from the Stampin' Up! Catalog, which I do every Monday, I kind of figure it out on my own, but I also have the catalog resources as a demonstrator to rely on to tell me what color ink, what dyes, what everything that goes into the card. Now, they don't give us dimensions, but they do give us a supply list. And this time I went completely on my own. I did my complete interpretation of this card, which may be different from what they actually did use, but I just wanted to look at that catalog today and just kind of do my own thing with it. And I came pretty close. I'm going to show you the image in the catalog. So let's get over to my workspace. We will check out all of the great supplies that go with this card. So make sure you're saying hi as you jump on, and let me get you over there right now. Here we go. Okay, so Timeless Tiles and Eclectic Garden. Now, these are both in the spring catalog. The January to June ends this week. So, and there's not probably a lot left, but these two items actually carry over into the new annual catalog, which is why I wanted to highlight them today. They're in the spring, they're coming back, which is awesome. Sleeper stamp set and a background stamp that maybe you didn't really think too much about, but I love what we can do with it. So here is my sample right here. And here's the one in the card. Now the one in the catalog is a lot lighter. I made mine pretty dark. As you can see, this is a very light, soft pastel. I kind of went a little bit bolder. I'm going to try to lighten it up a little bit here the second go around. I've only made this once. And it took me quite some time to figure out these cool dies. Let me lift this up and let my camera adjust for a second. So we've got, obviously these are little tickets at the bottom. So I kind of knew where those came from, but I wasn't sure where this came from. I was looking for a die that had notched corners, and then maybe another die that could leave like a little bit of a torn edge. And it was just light bulb moment when I finally figured out what dies I needed to use to create this card. So of course we have Timeless Tiles, big background stamp. This is a red rubber. I do have mine mounted on a large clear block. So here it is, all ready to go. We are using Eclectic Garden, and this one is photopolymer. We're going to be using the Bright Wishes out of this big sentiment. So you know we're going to be doing a little bit of a workaround to get that on there. We're also going to be using this little spotty grunge stamp. Now, if you followed me through my recent Arty Party, you know that background stamps and splotchy stamps made my top 10 list of stamps to own. So I was really excited that this card actually featured two of those stamps that I said, everybody should have these. Now here are the dies. Surprise! Sports event dies, right? You're like, what? Sports event. You're thinking that these are like for sports cards, right? This is something that was in the spring catalog. I'm not even honestly sure, I meant to look if they're still available because they don't carry over. So these might be already sold out. So if you have them, this is awesome. You're going to be able to use these in a brand new way, which I just thought was light bulb moment awesome. So when we get to the die cutting, I will talk to you about how those are going to get used. And I'm just moving some stuff out of the way as I go. So let us do a little bit of stamping and die cutting and all of the good things that we're going to do here today. Now we have a crumb cake base, and we're going to start with our big Timeless Tiles stamp. Now there's different ways that you can use this big stamp on this piece of paper. Now I'm putting this on a piece of Whisper White 4x5 1/4, and I'm using Memento ink. Now this is a big stamp, and I chose to put it on a block. Now you could use it on your Stamparatus. You just have to make your card stock a lot bigger than the stamp itself because you have to put your magnets on there and hold it down. And, you know, sometimes I like to just go for it, right? So I'm just going to go for it. So there's a couple of ways we can use the stamp here right on the big block. So I'm just putting the ink on here and making sure I've got lots of coverage because it takes a bit to get this covered. Okay, I think we're good. Now there's two methods. There's the method of plop it over. Now you can see how much this takes up in my hand. This is heavy, and try to line it up on your paper. You can't see what's going on underneath of it, so it's a little difficult that way. Or you can do the method where you actually line the paper up over top of the stamp. Now the length of the paper, this 5 1/4, is actually the length of our tiles here, so that's awesome. So then I just have to center it side by side. And earlier when I first did this, decide which side I want to go down, as I'm putting it on here, I realized that there's a little bit on each side, on each of these lengths, that's going to still be unstamped. So I'm just going to very carefully pause here for a second, right? Putting this on here. Probably don't have it quite as centered as I want. I can see that there's a little bit less stamp over here and there's a little bit more over here, but that's okay. So from here, there's a couple methods you can do. You can take your bone folder and just rub this over top of your paper. And what that does is that pushes that down onto the stamp itself. Or you can take a piece of copy paper, you know, scrap paper, whatever, and then same thing. This just keeps everything a little bit cleaner and neater, because as you push this down, you're doing the opposite of stamping when you push the stamp onto the paper, right? So I'm just going to use my bone folder and make sure I've got all of this, you know, and you want to definitely focus on the outside edges because that's where you're most likely not going to get coverage when you're doing it the method this way, right? So here's my copy paper, no problem. I'll get rid of that. And I think this got really crooked while I was doing all that. Oop, there it is. Look at that. Not too bad. So I am pretty happy with this one. It's not as crooked as I thought it would be. Now it's not quite as centered as my first one, but I'm okay with that. These tiles are super awesome. It kind of gives the allure of like a stained glass, and I think that the sponging on here is the same thing. So that is a great way that you can play with your background stamps, is just to put your paper upside down on there and stamp away at it. I feel like that you're going to get a better image this way than if you took your stamp, tried to line it up and over the paper and put it down on top. So there we go. Now we are going to bring in some ink and some blend brushes, and I just cleaned all my blend brushes. I have maybe a dozen or so in my little container, and the other day I took every one of them was dirty, of course, right? I took them and washed them and washed them and washed them, and they're all clean, but we are starting over with them. I'm going to start with Pale Papaya. I'm going to start with the lightest color first, and I'm going to add this in using the blend brushes. Now you can also use, in the catalog it shows sponge daubers, so you can absolutely do that too. And I'm just gonna, maybe I'll try to do this a little bit lighter. So I'm gonna just kind of start. Now the nice thing about the tiles here is that it kind of really gives you a point of reference. Like you can be like, I want these 3 tiles right here. So you can kind of focus on where you want your tiles to be colored in. And I'm gonna come over here and put a little bit over here. And the secret really to this card is to leave a little bit of it not colored in. Okay, so next I'm going to come in with some pool party, and we're going to do some areas of pool party. So again, I'm going to try really hard to not put quite as much ink on as I did the first time. It's really easy to add a lot of ink because we're always thinking we need more, more, more. So I'm going to try to keep this one a little bit lighter in some areas here. So I'm kind of just matching up into my Pale Papaya here. And just putting a little bit here and there and not really overlapping. So I'll lift this up a little bit so you can see already it's really pretty, right? I mean, I could leave it at this and it would be fantastic. And I mean, I love this background stamp for that very reason. All right, but we are going to add one more color. We're going to add in Fresh Freesia. And again, I'm going to try to go a little bit lighter to see if I can't copy the catalog sample just a little bit more so than what I did on my first practice here. So I'm just kind of finding some spots where I need to have a little bit of color put in, but I want to make sure I don't quite cover every section. I want to leave a little bit of it not colored in. So you can see there's probably a little bit here, there's a little bit here. You can kind of see not completely covered, but you can definitely have the coverage on there. So I'm going to lift these both up a little bit. So the one that is not mounted is a lot lighter than the one that is. So I kind of eased on the ink a little bit there. Of course, you can make them super dark if you want to. I mean, that's just almost so much fun. All right, we are going to bring in the Big Shot and do a little die cutting next. I move my paper out of the way. It seems to wibble wobble everywhere. All right, so Big Boss coming in. And just minimal die cutting on this one. So I have a scrap of white cardstock, and we are going to be using this die that looks like it's going to be a split ticket, basically. And, oh, actually, while we're doing that, let me run through one of my sets of little tickets. These are the mini tickets. We're going to want some in Mary Merlot, and we're going to want some in Pool Party for this card. Run those through real quick. It's always nice when you don't have to worry about centering something over top of something that you've already stamped. You can just run it through and it can be just as easy as possible. Get those tickets out of the way. We're going to bring in the Pool Party. We're going to do one more run here with the little set of, I think this is 6 tickets, 5 or 6 tickets. I forget now. 6. It is a run of 6. 6 tickets. Get that out of the way. Move away my dies. Now, if you think about tickets, right? Obviously sporting events, that's what this whole set is about, is sporting events, but tickets for anything. You got the circus, you've got the fairs and carnivals, you've got prom, you know, like anywhere you're going to buy a ticket, the movie theater, all of these little ticket dies are perfect for that. So I was super excited to get hold of these tickets. So here's my tickets, and here's my bigger ticket. This is the one that I die cut out of the larger die. So you can see that it's got a little perforation right here, and it's got all those nice little corners. So I'm just going to bend this a little bit first, and then I'm going to actually rip this off. How cool is that? So this is what I was looking for when I was in the catalog looking at the image. It had the 4-notched corners, and it had something kind of torn at the side. And now I have this little extra ticket that I can use for another project as well. And we are going to 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I need 4 for, yes, I need 4 tickets here. So I'm just going to rip off 2 tickets, set them aside. And for this one, we want 3. So I've got some extra tickets that I'll be working with. We are going to stamp from the Eclectic Garden. It kind of looks like grapes or berries. Let me bring my card back in again. And kind of see where we're going with this. So I have Crumb Cake. Crumb Cake is a really great color when you want to watercolor something, or possibly use some color pencils just to get a different look. So it kind of gives you a lighter background, obviously, than a darker brown or a black. It kind of fades into the background. Once you get going on it, you don't really notice as much all of that all of the background of the stamp. And it almost looks like it's been embossed with gold, which is pretty cool too. All right, let me set that aside as well. And we are going to do some coloring. Now I'm going to use some ink refills. I've got Mary Merlot and Soft Succulent, and I've got my water painter here. And I am going to start with the green. So Soft Succulent, and you don't even need really a whole drop of ink. You can even just like the tiniest little half a drop. I mean, it takes so little to do these kinds of effects. And I'm going to squeeze some of this water out of my water painter here off to the side. So I've got the ink drops over here, and this is over here, and I'm going to kind of meet the two up a little bit and just get a really light color. And I'm just going to come in. Now this is just regular white cardstock. I didn't do this on shimmer. I didn't do it on watercolor paper. And I'm trying to get a super light coverage here. We left this up so you can see. Hopefully a small tint of green. Again, so I'm trying to get it much lighter than my original. I did the original pretty dark. I'm trying to make this one as light as I can and still have color on it. And basically you're doing this by just the amount of water that you're adding to that little drop of re-inker. So it's really light. It's like a watercolor wash. Now this will darken down a little bit too as it dries. I don't know if you can really tell in here or not, but there it is. Let me grab out a baby wipe. I meant to have a paper towel on hand, but I kind of forgot that part. So I'm just going to clean this up a little bit because I don't want the green into my red. So I'm just squeezing water out, and I like to run it on a baby wipe and just make sure the bristles are really clean. And we're going to start over. We're going to start with Mary Merlot now, and we're going to do the berries. So again, same thing. I'm just going to squeeze out the tiniest little bit of color here and get those out of the way. And I'm going to add in some water and just try to get this as light as I can. Mix it in a little bit. And while it's still a little bit darker, I'm going to try to get just like the bottom edges of the berries to give it that little bit of depth. So I'm just going to go along here and do that real quick. And then I'm going to wash the tops of them with a lighter color. Okay, so I'm going to lift this up so you can see. I just kind of did the bottoms of those a little bit darker. Now my first one, I went so dark. Like the bottoms of these ones are so super dark. I do like it, but it's not what they had as the image of the catalog. So I'm just going to kind of wash this a little bit more here and see if I can blend this right into the top and get those colors washed in a little bit. Now on my first sample, I mean, it was so dark, I actually brought in a little white gel pen and added a little bit of white to the berries to kind of help lighten them up a little bit. These again, these are a lot darker even than I wanted them to be, but that's okay. You get the idea, right? So you can see the difference though in the super dark and then the much lighter version. So there's a big difference really in how much coverage is on there. Now again, I just brought in just a white jelly roll, just a white pen. I waited until it was dry, and then I just made little swoops here between where the dark and the lighter color met to just kind of highlight those berries. But that's it. So I'm going to clean off my block, and we are done with the water painter. I'll set that aside, and we need to do our splotchy. Let's do our splotchy real quick. So this is a tiny little splotchy, and we are using Evening Evergreen. And we're going to do a little bit of like stamping on and stamping off. So stamping on, stamping off. And then we're going to do the same thing, different spots here. We're going to just kind of on and off. But we're not going to get carried away. Maybe one right there. Because we really don't want the whole thing to have polka dots on it, right? We just want it to be splotched over. We're kind of filling in a little bit. And that takes care of our splotch with the Evening Evergreen. All right, so that takes care of that. Next we have our Sending Bright Wishes for a Happy Day. Now I only want bright wishes, and I wanted to fit on this tiny little run of 3 pool party tickets. So earlier I tried the masking technique, and I ripped off all kinds of little tape and realized that it was so difficult because the sending, let me grab the stamp set so you can see it. The sending and for a happy. So this H in happy came right up into best wishes. And it was really hard to mask around the T and the H over here and then this H here. And so I decided masking was not the way I wanted to go. I decided that the Stampin' Write marker was the way that I wanted to go. So I'm going to use the brush end, and I'm just going to do Bright Wishes. I've got to just read this again to make sure. So I'm just going to rub the tip of this marker along only on Bright Wishes. So, and again, this is photopolymer. It's a little bit harder to read than the red rubber for doing this technique, but it can be done. Just got to remember to catch all of the letters. And a good way to do this is to actually, so you can see Bright Wishes on here, right? And I can see that I have everything pretty much covered that needs to be covered. So you can see it this way. Now, if this was red rubber and you weren't really sure, what you could do is you could stamp it down on a scrap paper and you could see how is this going to turn out. And at the same time, there's still a little bit of ink on here because we haven't washed it off. So you still have an idea of where you really want to recover this with ink. And it gives you a good idea of, did you need a little extra cover somewhere? Or did you possibly ink up a letter that you don't want to ink up? You need to clean your stamp off completely and start over, because otherwise you're going to get a shadow of something that you do not want. So those are some little tips there. So I have Bright Wishes, and I'm going to line this up on my pool party tickets and give it a stamp. Oh, that's very low. That's kind of low on there. Not very happy with that one. I have more tickets though, so I'm going to do this again because remember, this was a run of 6 tickets, and we still have 3 left over, so that's kind of nice, right? I'm going to try this again. All right, did I get? Yep, I actually kind of notched this H here, so I'm going to wipe this off. And we're going to keep going here. Maybe I'll lift this up a little bit so I can see better. Trying to do this way away from my eyes at the bottom of my desk is not always the easiest. All right, I'm going to give this a practice run. Bright Wishes, looking good. Okay, one more time. So this card, I mentioned in the comments as I got the video set up, I said this card looks really easy. And surprisingly, it's not. This is one that's a little bit more complicated. It kind of surprised me, actually. I thought I picked out a super easy card tonight. And it just goes to show you that sometimes the easiest cards look really difficult. And the cards that look simple are so much harder. It's just really funny, right? All right, so I'm going to try to get this on here a little bit higher this time. I think I succeeded. Bright Wishes, there we go. See, much, much better. Second go around. This one was really low, so I'm going to just put that one aside. We're not going to use that one. All right, let me cap up my marker. All right, so we have everything stamped, ready to rock and roll. I'm looking at my little berries here, just make sure I like them. And okay, we got all that, we got all that. We're going to bring in all of our parts and pieces and do a little bit of assembly here. And this also was a little bit trickier than I anticipated. I have some gorgeous, soft, succulent ribbon. It's just really, it's just like a satin ribbon, so it's a really nice ribbon. But it's also thick and heavy. And I cut about 7.5 inches. And what I want to do with this is I want to bring in some of this black twine, baker's twine. And we're actually going to make a little bow here on the end of it. So we're going to kind of loop it over and make a little bow. Now I found that this is just more difficult to work with than you anticipate, right? So you fold it over like this and you want to make your bow underneath here. But this ribbon is it's kind of difficult. So I found that if I grabbed a glue dot and asked my ribbon kindly to stay in a folded position. I'm going to fold it right about there, I think. I do want them to overlap. So I'm just going to put a glue dot here on the ribbon, and I'm going to just put this ribbon over top. And now I've got this area where I can put my little bow over without having to argue with this ribbon about staying in one spot. Now again, I like to work off the spool here, so it's a little bit more difficult. But in the end, it saves me ribbon, and I like that. Okay, so let's go right about there. We're going to go toward the end of it, kind of gather it together here, and make a little bow. I realize my fingers are probably in the way. You can barely see what I'm doing. But what I've done is I've gathered this part right here, and this part, I have the glue dot holding this right here, so that's kind of nice that it was holding that for me. And now that I'm happy with my little bow, I can cut this off, and I didn't waste any twine. That's my mission, is not to waste anything. So if I had pre-cut some, I know there would have been some that I had wasted or put, thrown away. So this has this nice little loopy right here. You can poof it out a little bit, right? And it's going to go on our card just like that. And that's a really fun way to use ribbon. And this is something that I normally don't do. So when I saw this in the catalog, I was like, oh, cool. Another way to use ribbon. I'm very I love the swoosh ribbon where you just kind of swoosh it around sentiments and such, but this was a little bit different. Making sure my card is going to open the way that I want it to open, and making sure I have my tiles on here the way that I want them to go on my card base. So already super pretty. So the ribbon is going to come on here, and everything on this card is actually pretty low. I'm going to bring in some tear and tape to adhere the ribbon first. And I'm just going to do the back side here. I'm not going to worry about this little poofy side. And I'm going to see if I can't get this to separate nicely for me today without too much fuss. There we go. Okay, here it is. So this is going to come on here. This is a little bit longer than my first one. I might be trimming this up a little bit. Okay, now this is loose and goofy, right? So my suggestion here is a glue dot. So I just took a little glue dot and put it underneath the back side of this, and then I kind of tucked that down, and that helps to hold that on there, but you didn't have to use tear and tape for that, which is really nice. So there we've got that going on. Now we're going to add in our Mary Merlot tickets, and they're going to come down here, and they're going to kind of go at an angle. I'm just going to glue these on. Straight and flat. Nope, let's make that crooked and flat. We're kind of going at an angle here this way. The nice part about not having the entire ribbon attached is you can kind of tuck this up and under a little bit too. So we've got that kind of going in that direction. And next we're going to add some dimensionals to the back of this. And I am working with minis. I'm going to actually steal some off the edges, I think. I have on order lots of dimensionals to come in. I do not have any big ones in my craft room right now. I've used them up quite a bit. So I'm just going to make big ones out of some of these. I hate to use these tiny little ones for a bigger project like this. So I'm going to just snip along the outside edges here a little bit and pull some of these off and make use of all of these little papers on the edges. Get these going here. And I blame the lack of dimensionals on the fact that I have been making so many cards using dimensionals that I didn't realize I needed more as quickly as I did. All right, so there's a whole bunch of dimensionals on there. Let me get all of that out of the way. And this is going to just come right over top of here. We're going to kind of bring it up toward our little black ribbon there. We want our Mary Merlot to still kind of hang out with us. And I think this was slightly angled. This looks like it's going to be more straight on this card, but there we go. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of adhesive to the back of the pool party. My little tickets here. And these are just going to hang off right here on the bottom. No dimensionals needed. They're just touching the edge of this berry stamped and die cut paper. So we've got that going on. And the last thing we need to do is add in some classic matte dots. Now they in the catalog, they used, and I actually counted, they used 12. Can you imagine 12? I used 2, 4, 6, I used 7, and I felt like a glutton. I was like, wow, that's a lot of like little dots here, but there's no way I could possibly use 12 on one card. I'm sorry, unless it was like a specialty card. I'm just not going to use 12. I'm going to use a few here though. So these come in, and they're really nice. They come in black, they come in gray, they come in white, and they come in like an ivory color as well. So we're just going to do a little mixing and matching. I might mix these up a little bit this time too, kind of seeing how the first run of it went here. So I might mix it up just a little bit and see what I come up with here. But I think 12 is a bit much. I don't know about you. Let me know in the comments. How many of these would you use on your card? Because I think some is good, but you know, I don't want to use all of them up. Actually, I think 6 on this card is lovely. I've got 2 up here, 2 over here, and 2 over here. And they are forming that nice little triangle, which is what I kind of aim for. Let me bring in my original card here so you can kind of see again. Differences in color, right? A little bit lighter for sure on the card I just finished. Actually, I kind of prefer the dimensionals here versus here. But of course, every time you make a card, it's going to look a little bit different but there they are. Super, super pretty. All right. So there we have it. Jess made it. Yay, Jess. Jess has been having problems with her internet, so I'm really glad that you're able to watch tonight, Jess. This is awesome. Linda said she loves the new catalog. I did ship catalogs. They should be arriving to you within the next day or so. If you are still looking for yours, just check the mail. If you've shopped with me in the last 6 months, you definitely were mailed a catalog. If you haven't shopped with me in the last 6 months and you'd like one, we can talk about it. But with postage being as expensive as it is, if you're not interested, I don't want to just ship catalogs. And I know some people have other demonstrators they get catalogs from too. So that is awesome. So that was our card tonight. Really pretty, right? And it's kind of that stained glass technique. So I'm super excited to try some different colors with a swap out, which we will look at on Wednesday over on Positive Paper Crafters. So yeah, we've hit the 8:30 mark, the half hour sweet spot that I like to spend with you on a Monday night. I like this card a lot. It definitely had some challenges as I was putting it together. I expected it to be super simple, and I think if I did it a few more times, it probably would be, but the first time through, I was like, wow, this is a little bit more than I anticipated. So check us out on Wednesday over on Positive Paper Crafters. We will do a color swap. I'll have tooltip tomorrow on Tuesday. And going forward into the summer, I will be continuing my Make It Monday, but I am really excited to announce that I am going to be doing a summer camp. I did one last July. I did napkin techniques. We spent the whole month talking about napkin cards. It was awesome. We did trainings and all kinds of things. This year, I'm taking 8 weeks of the summer. I've chunked it up into 1 week segments, and I am focusing on, if you can see behind me or not, the mess, the organization, the cleanup. So each week during the month, starting next week in July, I am taking a full week and I'm going to talk to you and show you and walk you through my process, all the behind the scenes in my craft room of how I store stuff, how I want to store stuff, how I'm going to store stuff, all of my options for organizing. And so we're going to take 8 different topics. We're going to take a week with each. So there's going to be lots of stuff over on Positive Paper Crafters. So please join us over there. If you haven't joined in yet, please come over to our community, check us out. There's going to be lots of organizing tips. And I am going to get my craft room clean this summer. This is my goal. So first week up, we're going to be talking about stamp storage and organization. So every week, different topic. Every week, lots of tips on what ways you can use. I'm going to show you my ways. You can share your ways. It's going to be a lot of fun, but I'm planning to spend the summer in my craft room getting organized, and I want to share that journey with you. So I hope you're excited. Leave me some comments in this feed as well if there's something specific that you need help organizing, and let's see if we can get that worked in too. We've got 8 weeks of summer coming up, so it's gonna be awesome. In the meantime, everyone, stay inspired, create something beautiful, and share the love. Bye.